One, I want them to be excited to come to work, which is unique. It's not something that's easy to figure out for people because work is still work at the end of the day. But if you're excited and you're happy to be there, you're likely to do a better job at the job.
Welcome to The Profitable Table, fed by Woolco Foods, a podcast at the nexus of hospitality, business, culture, and the mind. Now here's your host, Woolco Foods CEO, Steven Toboroff.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Profitable Table, fed by Woolco Foods. I am your host, Steven Toboroff, and today I am very much looking forward to my conversation because it's going to involve two of my great passions in life, which are the hospitality industry and baseball. So without further ado, allow me to introduce my guest, which is Pat Light. Pat is founder and CEO of the Light Group. Pat focuses on curating a distinctive suite of hospitality offerings, and his love of good eats and cleverly crafted cocktails comes second only to his love of America's pastime, baseball. As a first-round draft pick, he was selected by the Boston Red Sox and later pitched for the Minnesota Twins, Pittsburgh Pirates, and Seattle Mariners. It was the opportunity to travel across the country during his playing days that inspired Pat to trade in his glove for a cocktail shaker. And he is also the co-host of the Sorry We Are Closed podcast. Pat, really great to speak with you today. I'm looking forward to this, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, my friend. It's nice to talk. Always nice to talk shop, especially with another baseball fan.
And it's great to talk to someone else who's invested in New Jersey, and we're neighbors here. My business is over here in Jersey City, very familiar with Hoboken. So this is going to be really great. Would love to start, Pat, by asking, there was a recent Forbes article about you, and I just would love to start by knowing what made you transition from baseball into the hospitality industry? What was that process like for you transitioning from baseball into hospitality?
Just like any 20-something-year-old, right? I'm 22. My sister asked me to move to Hoboken, and I just got drafted by the Red Sox the year previous. And our off-season, which I actually didn't know at the time, but it worked out really well. The busy season for Hoboken and kind of up in this area, it happened to coincide well with my off-season. And so I moved up here, and just like I said, I'm like a 22-year-old guy. Over the next few years, you go to the bars, you go to the restaurants, you enjoy yourself, right? That's what this atmosphere is. Jersey City and Hoboken is a very lively atmosphere, and it's exciting. So I did a lot of that, and through that, I made a lot of friends. A lot of them happened to be owners of these certain places. And, over the years, I just became closer and said, hey, listen, if you ever needed an investor or what have you, when my career was ending, I was trying to plan a little bit. I didn't really want to do corporate America. 2018 in April, I think late April or early May, I can't remember which one, but close enough. The Mariners released me, and my business partner now, who wasn't at the time, but a guy by the name of Danny Gray, who does Grand Bin, he was the partner and still is with us at Green Rock. He asked me if I wanted to invest in this sushi restaurant that he was opening, which is called S2E37, still there, still running. And I took a chance on it. I bought a small percentage in it, and I asked Danny if I could work there for free, just to kind of learn the industry to see if I was interested in moving forward with that. I have a lifestyle because I had to go back to school. I left that for my junior year at the moment. And so I had another year before I was going to have to make any decisions on money anyway in my business and career. And so I just took the opportunity to do that. And I actually didn't really enjoy it that much. I must be honest. I had to host a difficult job. Girls that do it, 21, college-age girls, more power to them. It is a difficult job in the restaurant industry, having to have customers likely complain to you while also your wait staff complaining to you about overseating or underseating. And it's a difficult job, but about 6 months into that is when I decided that I was very interested in doing more of the sports bar theme and kind of that route. And that's when I went after Green Rock, and I had never turned back.
It's interesting you mentioned hosting because one of my first jobs after college as well, I was still out in Chicago. I went to college in Chicago and I worked for the Let Us Entertain You group, which is a big restaurant group out in Chicago. And I was hosting for this brand new steakhouse that they'd opened up right in Water Tower, at the top of Water Tower, if you're familiar with that part of Chicago. And you hit it on the head. You have to deal with the customers. You have to deal with the wait staff. You deal with everybody. So it's quite an introduction to the business, but I have a lot of respect for the people that do it as well. So the Light Group has now expanded to include Texas, Arizona, River Street, Garage, McSwiggan's Pub, and the Waiting Room. My question, Pat, is, are there any particular attributes that you look for in an acquisition? Is there a theme? Is it the management? Is it the concept? What do you look for as you add new acquisitions to your portfolio?
So the original piece, like theory behind what I wanted to do was find profitable businesses that perhaps the owner wanted to move on for whatever reason, whether they wanted to retire, whether they wanted to go do something different, whatever the case may be, wanted to move on. That was the Green Rock thing. That's what I wanted to buy in Green Rock. From there, it kind of turned more into what could I bring to the table, right? So, hey, listen, this bar is doing, like Texas, Arizona has been a staple at that location 30 years. Like it's been there forever. Okay, Texas is great. I could buy it for X amount. Most times when you're buying something that's profitable, it comes at a premium, right? You're not buying it for pennies on the dollar unless failing, or that perhaps an owner might be in a pinch or something. So it was a premium price tag. With that comes, like, I want to be able to offer a premium price to the owner who's currently owning and operating a location, knowing that in my head, it's not a premium because I know there's X, Y, and Z in the bar. I've been there. Anytime I get target acquisition, I go to the bar a lot and make it more profitable from day one. So I always look for that. Additionally, now, as we've expanded our group, we have a team of managers that is very talented. And the systems that we have now allowed us to operate a bit more efficiently. And so that not only from a operational standpoint, how bartenders operate, what we're mixing, all of those types of things, but from an ordering standpoint, being able to order in larger quantities, be able to bring that kind of cost of goods down. And on top of it, one of the biggest costs in any industry, but we're no different in hospitality, is labor and management. Management costs you the most amount of money. It's oftentimes very difficult to find good, talented managers that want to stick around and stuff like that. So we have that with our group. And when we, acquire a new asset, we can kind of plug them into the system and keep management costs low to allow the business to flourish even better than it originally was under if you only own one spot or two spots. When we can collectively put our heads together, owning 6 or 5 or operating that way, you can keep management costs down by kind of economies of scale, not to mention cost of goods economies of scale. And so it's added value where I want to go. And then the last bit that I think that I'm still early on, I still think restaurant owners would be early on if they started today, is kind of the new age of marketing. The social media trend really picked up in the middle of 2014, 2015. That's really when it got going. I still think we're all early to it. I think a lot of restaurant owners are in those 50s and 60s range. That's when you have a little bit more capital, right? To kind of be able to purchase something and still live your life. Not many I'm 34. Not many 34-year-olds have 5 or 6 places under their belt at that age. And so I'm into the social media. I grew up with the social media. I grew up with all this stuff. And I think putting a focus there has allowed me to attract more customers to my locations, because you're not seeing an owner of X bar who happens to be in their 50s and it's not like something that they grew up with in social. They're not posting quite as much, or they're not going to Google ads and finding different ways to promote your parties or any other type of thing. So I think there's a little bit of that as well from the media end that we kind of looked at over the last, let's say, called 12 months, that has really helped propel us as well in different revenue streams.
I think that's such an important point that you make, and it's something that I've explored in a number of my earlier podcasts, which is that those restaurants and those businesses within the hospitality space that really know how to execute in social media and do so consistently can drive results that will far exceed their peers who only do it half-heartedly or without a strategy or without consistency. And I think that's an important point. I have a lot of listeners that are in the restaurant space, have a lot of listeners that dream of opening their own space right now. And so that's an incredibly important point. I also want to mention something else that was in the Forbes article, and it's something, again, dear to my heart. We bought our building here in Jersey City back in 2004. We're 1 mile from the Holland Tunnel. And I've seen the evolution during that period of time. And you've been very active in promoting Hoboken. You have the Hop On Over to Hoboken initiative, which you executed on for July 4th. And so it's kind of a 2-part question, which is this Hop On Over to Hoboken initiative, will that include events or activities beyond July 4th? And as a sort of subsection to that question, what would you say are the most unique or attractive attributes to Hoboken that makes it a must visit for people in New York City and from around the country?
Yes, we have a lot of things in the works in an attempt to do more in Hoboken other than July 4th. A lot of that is centered around the World Cup, which is going to be obviously a big attraction. That's kind of the genesis of hop on over to Hoboken because you're local, you know the area. Like, there's no reason why Brooklyn can be as popular as it is, and Jersey City and Hoboken are not thought of the same. Oftentimes, it's easier to get to Hoboken or Jersey City than it is to Brooklyn. And so there's no reason why we aren't viewed that way. And so I wanted to get it out there more. I wanted people to have these conversations more. I want better, not just myself. I want great hospitality groups like Major Food to come to Hoboken, put something. We have a very similar demographic to a lot of these other locations. And so I just wanted to get a bit more awareness around Hoboken. Obviously, we did the July 4th event, which attracted somewhere in the ballpark of 40,000 people to come. As successful as you could ever hope to be, especially the first time. So obviously that is a staple, and that is something that we really want to execute on every single year. But again, specifically next year where you have the 250th anniversary plus the World Cup going on, that is super important when it comes to where we want to head in Hoboken, Jersey City. Again, the main driver for me is just attention seeking for our area. Our area, I think, is just not thought of as much, right? When I go out different parts of the country, I just say I'm from New York City. You're going to understand that. Even if I said Brooklyn, you'll be like, oh, that makes sense because it's a borough, right? Talked about a lot. Again, I think we should be viewed the same way. And when you talk about what Jersey City and Hoboken, to your second point, has to offer, I mean, you're talking about some of the best views you could ever imagine. If you're not from the area where you see this view all the time, I mean, listen, I've lived here for 12 years. The view still isn't old to me. It's crazy to me. I often sit on my couch and just be like, it's crazy to me that I live here. How lucky could I possibly be? I remember I was on a vacation with my fiance out to Greece last summer, and we were on a boat with, obviously there was a captain. I don't know how to drive a boat. And there's a captain, somebody helping us, and we were just kind of sailing around Santorini. And they were like, where are you from? And again, I'm not going to say Hoboken. They don't know Hoboken. That's somebody local would know. I say, oh, New York City. And you go, oh, what a dream. It's like, that's cool. What a dream it would be to go there. And it's like, I'm living right next door to a place that people would consider a dream to be at. And I see it every day. And so to me, there's so much that Hoboken, like if that guy, that captain wanted to come and for some reason he contacted me, I'll be like, you have to stop in Hoboken because you're going to want to be able to take these pictures to send to people. These are the pictures that you will send to people when you visit New York City. Yeah, of course, you'll take the picture in Times Square, fine. Like you maybe you see the Empire State Building, but you're not going to see the Empire State Building that well when you're next to it because it's huge. So these are the pictures that you would send, and you couple that with the hospitality. I mean, the diversity in Jersey City, it's one of the most diverse cities in the world. There's so much that these two cities have to offer that I think we would be doing ourselves a disservice if we didn't try to get this not only from a national level, but on the international stage, when something as big as the World Cup and the international spotlight is coming to our area, I think we would be all doing ourselves a disservice if we didn't try to go after that.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. Before moving to Jersey City, we were in the meatpacking district in New York. I grew up in New York City, born and raised, and we sell all 5 boroughs of New York. We sell the suburbs of New York, and we sell the entire state of New Jersey. And from my lived experience, the vibe that you get walking around Jersey City or Hoboken is what you would have gotten from the West Village or Williamsburg 20 or 30 years ago. The number of independent restaurants, so many phenomenal chefs and mixologists coming out here, staking their name on quality, that in addition to the phenomenal views, I think just from the hospitality scene itself, there's something extraordinarily unique and valuable about what's going on this side of the river. And I think it's going to catch on more and more. And I think you're promoting it is essential. A question I have for you, again, it's a 2-part question, but for people that are listening, and I would love to know myself, what disciplines and habits and practices and even mindsets that you developed as a professional athlete do you find that you've brought over with you as an entrepreneur, and particularly to the hospitality space? And then as a part 2 of that is, I love the sport of baseball. As I said, I played in high school. I've been a fan my whole life. What lessons, if any, did you learn specifically from the sport of baseball that you find have translated, or things that you rely on as your journey as CEO of the Light Group and all of the stuff that you're doing in the hospitality space?
Two very good questions. I mean, there's one thing that I've always thought of, and it kind of answers both questions. There's one thing that I've always thought of that I think gives me a bit of a leg up in this particular business. That is the ability to not overreact to things. You constantly are thrown different things. Again, I'm sure it's the same in a lot of industries, but for the hospitality industry, which we're talking about today, you're constantly thrown things that you are just not expecting. The moment you think you're on level ground, there's another bill that you forgot, or we forgot to be promoting this. There's always something to be doing. And I remember when my first year at Saku, I was working the floor one day. I was the manager, and my partner is as good at working the floor as you'll ever see. This guy, Danny, he was so good at it. Then one night he took the night off, and I was right, I was going to do it. Like, I'll work the floor a little bit. It'll be fun, right? You schmooze some people, have a few drinks. And there was somebody's order was wrong, right? Yeah, Saku is obviously a sushi place, but there's also a hot food section. And the chef of the hot food area, it was his part, he was wrong. And he tended to sometimes get frazzled, right? Is a good word for it. And I remember it was like maybe the second complaint that night, which happened. Things happen. It's life. And I go back there, tell him, hey, listen, this was wrong. Can you remake this? Blah, blah, blah. And he was all freaked out. He said, I'm telling you this was right. I was like, well, it doesn't matter if you think it was right or not. He said it's wrong, so it's wrong now. They could have ordered something completely different. It means nothing to us. We have to give them what they're asking for now. So that's first off. And then he gets all frazzled. He finally we get him thumbs down. He makes the food. Boom. Problem solved. I remember at the end of the night, we were talking. He said, Pat, I don't understand how you're that calm in the heat of Friday or Saturday night in this town. You have not only a full book for reservation, but you have a ton of people walking in. This is the night. Not only do you want to, you understand that you have a full book for reservation, but these are the times you need to make the money. You don't get a lot of people on Tuesday, right? So this is the time to make money. So you're trying to seek the walk-ins, right? You're trying to, hey, would you go Cape Bar, Steve? And there's so many things going on. And he's like, I don't understand how you're calm about that. I always make the joke that when you've been booed by 40,000 people like I was at Fenway Park, somebody's sushi order being wrong doesn't really get you riled up. You're not doing it for me. All right, yeah, I'm sorry, that sucks. And you move on and you fix the problem and you go back to it. But when you're at, I pitched the July 2nd against the Angels at Fenway Park, and I did terrible. I got smoked. And when that's happening and you have a stadium full of people that are so angry and you're getting booed. I remember I came into the dugout. You think you're done pitching. You don't think you're going back down. You just gave up 4 runs. There's no way he's going to send you out. I remember my manager, John Crowell, slapped me on the butt and goes, hey, go get him next inning. And I was like, I can't believe this is happening. And then the moment I stepped foot out of the dugout to the next inning, 40,000 people boo me again. And it's just when that stuff is happening, that's real stress. And you have to do that. You have to go perform at a super high level. You're about to go face Albert Pujols. So it's not like you can just suck now or go hide in the corner. You're out there. As a pitcher, everybody's focused on you. There's no hoping the ball doesn't get hit to you. You start the game. So I think that in and of itself, I've always been a fairly calm demeanor guy, which helped me in baseball. But bringing that to hospitality, which is a unique industry in the chaos that happens on a Friday, Saturday night, things are constantly moving. People are upset. People are happy. It's constant. And so having that calm demeanor, not overreacting to what is likely a small problem, I think has not only helped me be successful in the restaurant industry, but it's also helped people that work for me also be like, okay, so they're looking to me to see if it's a big problem. How I react is how they're going to react. So if I'm like, okay, just make the dish, we'll be fine. I'll go take care of the table. We'll have a few laughs. By the time the laughs are over, the dish will be ready. Don't worry. And so they then calm down. So I think that's really helped in a industry that can be, again, super hectic. If you don't have the right personality type, you really need the right personality type as a manager to be able to help everyone out.
I like the point that you made because I think it's so important that when the leader is calm, it is communicated consciously and subconsciously to the rest of the staff. And that mitigates a problem Whereas I've seen situations in many different areas, I've even had to correct some of my managers here. When the leader of a situation starts getting overly emotional, it just communicates panic to the rest of the team, and it takes what's a minor situation and can turn it into something much worse and much more negative. So I completely agree with that point about calmness. Again, sort of sticking with baseball, but a little bit of a derivative from it. When you're playing a team sport such as baseball, it's incumbent upon the team that everybody does their job, but there's also this dynamic that's referred to a lot as chemistry. And I'm wondering, what lessons, if any, did you learn from baseball? Because you'd mentioned earlier in our conversation about hiring great management, retaining great management. Do you have any specific thoughts, suggestions, approaches to how you build the team within the hospitality space? Because I think you would agree with me, Pat, that the single most important part of a dining experience that a customer remembers is how they were treated from the staff, from the wait staff, from the host, So are there any specific sort of approaches, thoughts, disciplines that you have in terms of creating a team, building it, and sustaining it?
You're 100% correct. And I love that you use the word experience, because something that I try to pride myself on with my staff, which is tough. You've been in the industry for a long time. The first thing, when there's a night that's slow, right? The first thing anybody wants to do, and your staff is going to suggest that you do, is lower your prices. And it's just not the way to do it, in my view. The way I like to run is like, if people aren't coming, that means the experience sucks. And so we need to fix the experience. And the prices, listen, we don't get to control prices in my world. And what I always tell people, like, yeah, you're talking to the guy who like types in the price into the POS system. But I have to type in that price, otherwise I can't pay rent and insurance. Those people are who controls your price. I promise you. But so when building a team, it's so important to deliver a great experience to your customer. And so the way I try to go about it, one is you find one or two people in reality that are going to be your all-stars, right? They have a good chance of moving on to managers. They work hard. They want to be there. They look out for the restaurant, all of that. And then I always try to have them find friends. Because here's the thing about the way human beings work, is that we like to hang around people that are similar to us. We like to hang around people that relate to us. And so oftentimes, when you find somebody that's great, you should be asking them if they have any friends that also want to do some work for us. Because in the bartending world, there is a training component to it, right? You're in a sales position. Sometimes you don't view that way. You feel like you're just there taking orders. That's not what you're there to do. You're there to take orders, of course, but there's an upsell that we're trying to focus on, right? Is there a particular drink or dish that night that we want to sell more of? Like, there's a sales component to it. And so it's hard to find people that are good at that particular job. And so when you're training people, if that person already has that like innate character trait, which again, if you found somebody, if they're friends with them, they could oftentimes be somewhat similar mindset, you can kind of put that together. And now you start having this cohesive group. And you really only need 2 or 3 of them, maybe 4, depending on how big your restaurant is, that it starts spreading to other people. Because then what you can do is, once you have a few people that are like your anchors, you can bring people in with zero experience. And you almost want them to have zero experience because you don't want them to have bad traits yet in the industry. So come in, here's the POS system. These are the things that are important to us. This is how we want you to operate. And now the most learning that you're ever going to do is not from me setting my manager or me walking you through the POS. You're not going to learn much there. You're going to learn because you're going to watch how these other people do that working next to you all throughout the night. And how, hey, that person gets great tips. How do they do it? It's just feedback that it's going to rub off on you whether you like it or not. And so if you can have 2 or 3 like anchored, great salespeople that have exactly what you're looking for, then you just go out and hire people that don't have experience that or don't already think they know it all in the industry and do all that. And then those traits should rub off on those people. And what you hope is that these other people are graduating to managers. You've kept some of those inexperienced people that have now turned into all-stars to fill that role. And the cycle just continues on and on. So that's kind of how we've operated on trying to build a squad, and one that can be sustainable. Because again, the thing, I'm sure you hear it a lot too, the biggest thing I hear complaints about, other than costs that are associated with running the business, is finding good help. It's a difficult task to do, probably in any industry, but specifically restaurants.
There's so much valuable information in what you just said. And first off, I completely agree with you. I think that people are the most important component in any service industry, whether it's yours in the restaurant, mine dealing with restaurants. The interactions between people and people are what make the difference. And those that have great people skills, it's incalculably valuable. As I was listening to your answer, Pat, I was thinking of a great book that I read on business called From Good to Great by Jim Collins. And he has a chapter in the book where he talks about just get the right people on the bus. When you get the right people in your organization, you'll find places for them to have an impact. And what I really like, and I think is such, and you really articulated it, unlike I've heard it before, and I really want to underscore it for the listeners because it's so important. It's almost like your training program, if I'm understanding it correctly, or your approach has a certain wonderful flexibility to it where you have people who just by their personality and just by their metrics of success, which are tips, are demonstrating what you want. And you have the new people follow that, which I think is so brilliant. So it leads me to my next question, because we work with thousands of restaurants and many have different approaches. How do you balance the necessary structure that is inherent in a business like a restaurant business, which has so many challenges and disciplines? And how do you make room for that creativity and that personal decision-making? Because again, I really like that explanation you give, because I think it's so right and it so simplifies what can be an extraordinarily complicated and, as we already said, vital test. How do you balance the two where you have the structures where, look, this is the standard at the Light Group, this is what we do, but at the same time give people that space for their own creativity and ownership of what they do?
It's a difficult balance, right? Because I want to leave people alone. One, I want them to be excited to come to work, which is unique. It's not something that's easy to figure out for people because work is still work at the end of the day. But if you're excited and you're happy to be there, you're likely to do a better job at the job. So I always try to have I want to leave you alone as much as I can. I will let you be you, right? And so if I can set up a situation that allows that, but also we pull the reins in when necessary. I think that's kind of how we've done it, where we're going to go let you be you. And then you're going to push the envelope, you're going to push the envelope, you're going to push the envelope. And maybe then you push it a little too far. And then, hey, listen, it's a friendly reminder. Hey, reel this part in. Or it's, hey, if you're trying to do something, maybe we're trying to push a certain item. Maybe it's just a friendly reminder. Hey, by the way, this person's doing that. Or perhaps we go to one of our all-stars and say, hey, listen, make sure we're doing this. Make sure I saw so. And they weren't doing the way we like them to do it. Make sure we're reinforcing that. We need to work this as a group. And you have different ways of coming at them without being too overbearing. So they don't feel like they curl up in a ball and they go do something else. The other thing that I think is so important that I think oftentimes managers and owners make mistakes on, and this is something that I felt that was a mistake that I saw in baseball, was coaching or managing everyone the same way. I try, so I'm not as involved with our bartending and wait staff as I once was. I'm more directed right to us. So we have me as the CEO, then we have a COO, and then under the COO, we have the managers at each location. And then the managers are supposed to talk to bartenders and wait staff. My COO does, I do at times, but for the most part, we try to stay that way. And then one of the reasons why I think that's so important is because perhaps there's a bartender the bartender's been there forever. I know pretty well. I know how to talk to them and how they like to be taught, how they like to be coached, different ways to kind of help them get to where I want them to go without feeling like it's overbearing. But there are new people that inevitably I won't know as well. And so when that happens, I don't want to go talk. I don't want to coach them on something because it may not be the right way to go about it for them. I had a coach when I was in AAA, really nice guy. He really wanted everybody to do well, but he coached everybody the exact same way. It was very analytical. You're going to sit there after your outing. The next day, you're going to go over all the pitches. You're going to go over why you put them. You're going to go through. What he was trying to do was good. He was trying to coach me on the game. Why did you pick that pitch there? Okay, no, we should do it this way. But like the way I operated and the way I was in AAA, you're at literally the last step before the big league. And I got there for a reason. It was because I relied on raw talent and a little bit of the analytics, right? I didn't like to think too much because it made me overthink the game. And then next thing you know, you can't throw a strike, which is what happened to me towards the end of my career. And so he needed to kind of just let me breathe. Hey, listen, throw this here. I think it's a better pitch. And then let me find a way to justify it in my own head and give me little nuggets here and there, but not overly complicate a one inning outing and talk about it for an hour, right? And so when it comes to bartending and waiters, not that I would ever sit and talk to somebody for an hour over a single shift, right? But like when you're sitting there, sometimes people want the conversation. Some people want to know, why are our prices at this part? And maybe they want an actual answer. And the way we discuss internally about it, which is where we are, want to be at a profit. This is like a driver of sales. This isn't a driver of sales. We can be more flexible here or there. And then some people don't want to know that stuff, but people just want to be like, hey, listen, you tell me what to sell and I go sell. Right. So like it's different for everybody. And so the balance there is going to be allowing our managers to do what our managers do best, which is know our staff. Sometimes as an owner, you really want to drive the bus, but the best way you can drive the bus sometimes is letting other people do their job. Because if you don't know the right way to approach somebody, you can do more damage than you are good. I had a meeting one time with a bartender a couple of years back. I'll never forget it. Sat there and talked for like an hour and a half. And at the end of the meeting, I was like, that we went in reverse. That was a bad meeting. And the reason it was a bad meeting is because I didn't know the person well enough. I didn't know how to communicate my points well enough to that bartender to know exactly the direction listen, we're going in the direction probably that I want to go in anyway, right? But like, I need to be able to communicate it in a way to get them on board. Because if they're not on board with me, they have a chance of hurting me behind the bar. And so it's finding that balance for myself more so than it is for my staff, because the people that know them best know how to get what they want out of them best. And so it's more communicating to my management to let them go do the work rather than me doing it or my COO doing it and maybe not having that understanding with that bartender or server.
There's a lot there to sort of unpack, but is very important that I would like the listeners to underscore. The first is that especially in the hospitality business where you're going to have a lot of artists and creative people, it just seems to attract them. You really do want to respect people's individuality, and speaking to everybody and treating people, or at least knowing how to communicate to people, because understanding that people hear things differently is so vital. I also think you're 100% right when you talk about a chain of command, because at the end of the day, as you build the Light Group and as we have organizations that go beyond our ability to impact things moment to moment, we need to have our managers in a position of power and influence. And I don't mean power in a sense of do what I say, but that people know that they can go to this person for the answer, that they're not always looking to have everything centralized to you. It's impossible to grow organizations in that way. The final thing you said reminded me again of another book by this General Stanley McChrystal, who has had special forces. And he had a policy where if they were going to go on a mission, if he agreed with his underlings 90%, as long as it aligned with what they wanted to do, he would go with it because he learned that the more people felt ownership of what they were doing, the more successful they would be. And so when I heard you talking about that meeting that kind of went in reverse, it really is important to get that buy-in, because even if people yes us in the hospitality industry, if we don't have that buy-in, we might not see our goals reflected in the customer experience. Let me ask you, Pat, do you see as you build the Light Group looking to expand beyond Hoboken, or are you looking for more verticals that you can incorporate into the Hoboken community, sort of branching out from hospitality?
I'm not sure. I once had aspirations to grow into like a national, even international type group. I'm not entirely sure which direction I want to go in. What I know right now, and we have some opportunities that we're exploring as far as expanding right now, but what I know right now, this is what I tell everybody, is that we have so much to focus on internally as it stands. And sometimes you see companies grow too fast. And honestly, hands up, I think I did that a little bit when I bought Texas and Garage. I think we didn't know exactly what we were getting into. And we were a small team at that point. We didn't really, it was just me and my COO. I mean, we have investors, but it was just us running the show. And so what we want to do is, Hoboken's changing. I'm sure Jersey City's changing. I give a shout out to Dear Mod, who's a local spot here in Hoboken that cocktail focused, food focused downtown. And when I first moved here 12 years ago, you wouldn't dream of having that downtown. It was all bars to go out at night for young people. And a lot of my bars still do that, right? But what we're seeing is that Hoboken is getting older. Hoboken downtown is getting older. a lot of these things are kind of getting older. And with that comes a different, what I wanted at 34, I didn't want at 20. And so that's one of the reasons we launched the waiting room the way it was. The waiting room before us was a dive bar. Before that, it was Scotland Yard, which was the dive bar. Like, it was never a bar that was thought of in any type of way from a high ticket type place. That was, you're going to $5 Bud Lights, right? Like something like that. We completely changed that. And it took years, took a ton of resources, but we see Hoboken changing. We see what's happening in Hoboken. And so when it comes to expansion, we want to complement what we already have. And what we're seeing be successful for us is that we're a one-stop shop for folks when it comes to Hoboken. And we're trying to complement that even more, give other offerings so that when you want to come to town, or if you want to book a party, instead of you having to go through 17 different websites and all these other things, we right now, the way we have it set up is you send an email no matter where you send the email on my website, it goes to one person, then me. I see them all. But it goes me and one other person. And you have one person to answer you. And now you can speak to that person. And let's say you reached out about Green Rock. And Green Rock didn't, exactly the right fit turned out, right? That happens all the time. We want to keep you in our ecosystem, but also for the customer experience. Now that same person can be like, yeah, listen, that doesn't work that well, but you know where it does work. It works over at Texas Arizona really well. And let's go through that. And now you have a great customer experience at a time that can be very challenging to find these places. Oh, okay, well, this place didn't work. So now I got to go to this other website, reach out to these people. And then I go to this other website, reach out to these people. Like, it makes it so much more clunky, is the word I like to use. So what we're trying to do from an expansion standpoint is keep things complementary of what we already have. Give people more options and more choices when it comes to Hoboken hospitality, whether it be starting our own spot that we feel like might be missing in Hoboken, or adding a pre-existing spot that perhaps came for sale. That's kind of more what we're doing. And then to complement that even is we're doing some of these events, right? So we did the July 4th thing, and what we're trying to accomplish there is just bring some community-driven type stuff, bring some more attention to Hoboken, bring some more people from out of the city into Hoboken. I think to have people think of Hoboken that is like a place you come. And it's always been that to a degree, right? But like, can we make it stronger? Can we attract some hospitality group that have huge national names to the city, right? Can we do those things to make Hoboken in general, not only the light group, but make Hoboken in general a better place for hospitality? On top of that, I will say I'm sure I will grow a little bit out of Hoboken, but I don't have my eyes set on anything as it stands right now. I have talked a little bit about Jersey City, but for the most part right now, from an expansion standpoint, we're staying in Hoboken, talking about some verticals, adding some complementary businesses, and kind of going from there.
I really like what you said about Hoboken, and I can totally relate because we have a number of customers in Hoboken. And as I'm just thinking of some off the top of my head, this just shows the variety of Hoboken for our listeners in New York. I'm thinking of Hoboken Beer Garden, Orale Mexican, and then O'Neill's. And each of those businesses are exceptional at what they do. They each provide an exceptional experience. And they're exceptional within what they do, and yet they're three very different sort of categories of hospitality space. So I think there's an enormous opportunity still within Hoboken and Jersey City. And I like what you're doing. I think it's something that I would think other restaurateurs would want to consider. When you have multiple concepts, because not everybody does do this, do everything you can to centralize the information so that you can leverage those touch points into customers for just exactly as you said, Pat. And that makes a lot of sense. And I agree with you. I see it in Jersey City, even in all over the place. It's evolving to a point where there's so much there, it wouldn't make sense on one level to look too far beyond. I have just two questions for you, one about the hospitality and then one on something else. With the hospitality space, I have a lot of young entrepreneurs that listen. Some want to go into the hospitality space. Some have other businesses as well. What would you suggest would be the number, I know it doesn't have to be the number one, but what would you suggest as an important personal discipline or habit or approach to life that these people should start developing now that will translate into business? I know what mine is, but I'm curious to hear what yours are because you've had immense success at the professional athletic level, being a major league pitcher. You're having great success in the hospitality space. Is there something on a personal level, whether it's a habit of mind, a habit of behavior, a habit of interaction that you would want to share with people that they should cultivate before they begin their journey into business?
Yeah, I owe everything that I have in life from a success standpoint. And this is not necessarily baseball related because it doesn't translate all that well to baseball, but I owe everything that I have in life into my ability to network with people. And I'm not talking networking events. I'm not talking DMing people on LinkedIn, right? I'm talking like there's a habit or a personality trait that I would ask everybody and something that I would try to pass on to my future children. It is the ability to network. It is the ability to get people to like you. It's the ability to not rush into a business agreement with somebody and to provide value first, but not like the value, oh, I can save you X amount on pest services. No, like it's like become somebody's friend. Like it becomes somebody that they want to talk to. Of course, there'll be transactional friends. That's life. That's going to happen. There's going to be people that exist. But the ability that I've had to connect with people on a level that goes beyond business has allowed me to grow at the rate that I've grown at. And it has allowed me to have a Rolodex and a network that goes beyond hospitality and goes beyond just this line of work. I always said, a question that I've asked people, similar to what you just asked me, Steve, was if you had to leave a book to your kids that you write, and in that book, you could, or you say, let's phrase it this way. You're the genie and you're allowed to leave one trait to your kid. What would that trait be? It's networking. If you had the ability to network, there is no industry that you can't get into. You can't get into it tomorrow. Like there are right now in almost every person's phone book, there are two people that would love to connect and do a deal together that you hold the ticket to. You don't realize it. You're not looking for it, but there is. And there's a way to make extra income doing that. And that's how I've made my living. Yeah, restaurants are part of the equation, right? But the ability to bring people together, the ability to see value in everything that we do. Sometimes I get a little too crazy with what the value I think there is. But when you have the ability to bring people together and those two are going to make money together, there's a value for you and a value assigned to that type of stuff. So the ability to network allows you to expand in ways that you may never thought possible. You don't need to have a Forbes article written about you for a specific industry to make money in it and make considerable money in it because you can network your way to that. You can bring people together. You could bring two people that have really great expertise in one particular industry, but they're different expertise and they need each other. You can just bring that group together and maybe you end up with a small piece of equity. Maybe you end up with money out of it. Who knows? But if there was one thing I could lead to people and impress upon people to do, it is to network. And the way you learn those skills is socializing. It's not always the easiest thing to do. Sometimes it's annoying. Sometimes it's awkward. Sometimes you have to put yourself out on social media and post videos that you think your friends are making fun of you for. But you learn how to figure out how people act. Like when I go and talk to somebody, I can kind of figure out who they are pretty quickly and what makes them tick. And because of that, I can steer a conversation into exactly what it is that you want to talk about. It feels like manipulation, but I can make you come away from that conversation feeling so great and that you and I bonded so well. And if you can do that, I think you'll be fine in life. So networking, without question, is the number one trait. The ability to do that on a genuine level, that is without question the most important thing in my life. And I think that's what I would teach anybody to please look into doing, is that is something that it can be very impactful to your life.
It's a great answer. And I think there's really nothing to add to it. It's a phenomenal answer and something to reflect on. I really enjoy your podcast. Sorry, we're closed, Pat. So while I have you here, I have to ask you one baseball question. I just can't let it go. And here's the question I have. I'm a Yankees fan. I've been a Yankees fan since 1977 when I went to Horace Mann in high school and we would drive past Yankee Stadium and everybody would cheer. My question for you, Pat, is are Yankee fans like myself justified in being dissatisfied with Aaron Boone and critiquing him as a manager? Or I remember Michael Kay went on a rant saying that we're spoiled. He went to the World Series, which we did. He took us to the pennant where we lost to what was unquestionably a better team, the Astros. But as a Yankees fan, I have a very negative view of Boone. Is it justified, in your opinion? Can the Yankees win a World Series with him, or are the fans just being selfish and spoiled?
Great question. So, yeah, Yankee fans are notoriously selfish and spoiled. So to answer that question. But no, I think you're justified. And I've never met Aaron, but who doesn't remember his home run from back in the day where that was the first time I wasn't an adult, I was a child. That was the first time in my life that I truly believed in Kurt. I was like, there is a Kurt. I can't believe that just happened. And so, but it is justified because here's the thing about what people don't like about Yankee fans, but that is real, is that there's a level of excellence expected from the Bronx. And listen, do I blame Aaron Boone for losing in the pennant in the World Series? Not really. Are there managerial changes I think he may have been able to do better that may have given them a better opportunity? Probably. I'm sure we could go and sit down the next show and go through all the games and I'll be like, yeah, we probably should have done this here, which would have snowballed and setting them up better here. And I think that is ultimately sometimes what people don't always look at when you're talking about the impact a manager had, is a lot of the decisions, although he's not playing, a lot of the decisions he makes can impact games later, and which could ultimately cost your team ball games. So here's the thing. At the end of the day, the manager can only do so much. But when you sign up for the job to be the manager of the New York Yankees, that you have to win, whether it's your fault or not your fault. You need to find a way as the manager to win ball games and win World Series. You have to. That is your job. You have no other job. So when you don't do that, and if you can't get mad that there's criticism. So in my opinion, if you were a Marlins fan, I'd be like, okay, you got to relax. Baby steps here, baby steps. But as a Yankee fan, you have every right to be upset with him. I think you have every right to be upset with Cashman. I think as far as assembling the team, the Yankees have fallen short time and time again. And, that's a direct response to manager and a direct response to front office. So if you're not winning, everyone's going to take heat. So I think 100% justified. No one has ever been in the Bronx happy with a playoff appearance or a pennant appearance or even a World Series appearance. They're Band-Aids. You need to win in order to take that off. And that signing up for the job. So I think Yankee fans fire away because it's not like he was like, oh, if I win a couple playoff games, the Yankee Nation's going to love me. That's not what he thought signing up. So he should be getting heat because that's the nature of the job he took.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that because I often speak to my friends and I'm saying there's no way that George Steinbrenner would have tolerated this. And you sometimes feel as a Yankees fan that they're just happy filling the stadium and winning enough games and getting there. And there's not that passion. And I think of managers like Billy Martin, who, whatever their issues were tactical geniuses that would win you games. And I've watched a lot of Yankee games. I don't think I've ever seen Aaron Boone make in-game decisions that have helped us win. I've only seen him make inexplicable ones. But I'm glad to hear that I'm validated there. Pat, this has been such an enjoyable conversation, and I'm going to include this in the show notes, but where can people follow you if they want to learn more about you, the Light Group, follow what you're doing? Can you just give us some places where people that are listening can follow you?
Yeah, listen, TikTok, Instagram, Pat_Light. But since this is a hospitality thing, I think the place that would be most impactful for folks is my newsletter. It's on Substack. I would just type in Pat Light Substack to Google or Steven. I'll send you the exact link so that you can include it for folks if they want to click on it. But I've always said, what I'm going to give you in the newsletter for operators and for people that are managers, what I'm going to give you in the newsletter is going to get 90 to 95% of the people what they need to run a successful restaurant. If you need that last 5%, you probably need to talk to me or talk to somebody who can help you consult on a more deeper level and help you actually execute on the advice. But if you're a good manager or a good owner, you just need some tweaking, you need some words of wisdom or a little bit of advice here and there, a little bit of nuance, that newsletter is going to get you that level of information. And to be clear, you get the first one free. We do $5 a month afterwards. So think of it as buying an extra cup of coffee a month as an operator, which we all drink a tremendous amount of coffee, I have to imagine. So if That's the most impactful. I go over exactly what I'm doing. Everything you read in there is what I'm currently doing. And so you can keep up to date with me, keep up to speed, things that I think I'm ahead of the game on when it comes to social, when it comes to, I just did a whole deep dive on Google search ads. I don't think a lot of people are focused there in the restaurant, in the mom and pop restaurant. I currently have a search ad right now that's just me and Cracker Barrel, a multi-billion-dollar organization, are buying for attention here. There should be a lot more people vying for this type of attention that aren't. Great for me because it makes my stuff a lot cheaper, but there's a lot of opportunity out there that I think people don't think about. And I think that if you read some of this, I'll give you some nuance. We're small enough now where you can email me and I'll probably respond. And so you have a little bit more of information here that I think would be useful for folks. So again, it can get you 95% of the way there, even 100% in most cases. But every now and again, something will be a little bit more nuanced help, which I can also help if we need to do that. So I think that's that will play to be the best for your audience.
So first, Pat, when we sign off, just hang on a sec because I want to get that information. And I want to say to the audience that I've not heard of somebody providing this level of granularity and insight, and having not read it, but just having had the opportunity to speak with you. I really learned a lot and was very impressed with all of the answers. So I think that what you're offering would be immensely valuable for existing operators, as well as for people, and perhaps even more importantly, for people who aspire to get into the space. So if you wouldn't mind, hang on one, Pat. But before we do that, I just want to thank everybody for listening. If you've enjoyed the show, as always, please share it, please comment. Pat, this has been an absolute pleasure. I've learned a lot and I've really enjoyed speaking with you, and I'm going to include the information in the show notes. And to everybody else, have an awesome day. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you for listening to The Profitable Table, fed by Woolco Foods. Please be sure to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. And to learn more about Woolco Foods or Steven Toboroff, please visit us at woolcofoods.net.